What's happening, Packer fans? Welcome into the Pack a Day podcast here on YouTube. Happy Monday. We are mere moments away from kicking off the start of free agency as the legal tampering period starts today. Maybe as you're listening to this, it's already started. But have a great show lined up for you today because Aaron Jones is remaining a Green Bay Packer. And of course, that's going to be my main topic. And what better thing to talk about to kick off the week? I know there's, some feelings of, maybe Green Bay shouldn't pay a running back or things like that. I'm going to get into all of that today. But let's just start with the simple fact that Aaron Jones remaining a Green Bay Packer is freaking awesome. And I think it's okay to separate for a moment the contract and the terms and whether you believe in paying running backs, which to be fair, for the most part, I don't, and just be happy that Aaron Jones is remaining a Green Bay Packer. Like it's okay to separate those things, right? There's a lot of puzzle pieces that need to be moved around and figured out and fit together to figure out ultimately if Green Bay can put together a championship caliber team. But there's no question that the Packers are better with Aaron Jones on the roster and that he's just one of those players that you didn't want to see in another jersey, that you wanted to see him have continued success as a Green Bay Packer. He's so easy to cheer for. He's been a consummate professional. He just, all the way around a Green Bay Packer through and through. So it's so awesome to celebrate that. And more importantly, maybe not more importantly, but I'm just so happy as well that his last play in the NFC Championship game where he gets hit, fumbles, and goes out injured isn't his last play as a Green Bay Packer. He just deserved so much better than that for all that he's brought to the team over the past 4 seasons. And certainly now he'll be able to continue on and expand upon his already impressive resume as a Packer for at least the next couple of years for sure. We'll see what the structure of that contract brings. So I think that's the next thing here. As I'm recording this right now, we do not know, or I do not know, what the exact structure of that contract is. It hasn't been released yet. And that's going to be a really huge piece of this. It's reported as a 4-year, $48 million deal with a $13 million guarantee, which isn't on the surface super egregious. A $13 million guarantee likely tells you that there's going to be probably an out after 2 years of this deal because there's not going to be anything, too exorbitant or, dependent upon how it's structured. And I also think that there's a really great opportunity that this could cost about $5 million or less on this year's salary cap. So I think this is going to be a fairly low risk, potentially high reward move for Green Bay. And it certainly on the surface looks like it's going to be a team friendly deal for Aaron Jones and the Green Bay Packers. So I can understand why they would want to get this deal done. And again, more importantly than anything else, it makes the Green Bay Packers a better football team. And I do think that they got him under market value, which is still important. So I think that is really the place that I want to start off here. And this is not in any way, shape, or form a deal that I saw coming. To full transparency, I did not think that this was going to happen. I did not think that they were going to use what resources they had left on Jones when they just drafted A.J. Dillon in the second round. More than happy to say that once again I was wrong on this one. I'm kind of 0 for 2 on the big ones this offseason with Preston Smith and Aaron Jones. But again, more than happy to say that and happy to see Aaron Jones back in green and gold. So let's go over next, I guess, why this makes sense for Green Bay. First of all, as I've mentioned, all offseason, whatever you think of Aaron Jones and a potential contract and things like that, there's zero question that Jones is a perfect complement to A.J. Dillon and that those two together for the next, whatever it is, 2-3 seasons, whatever it ends up being, is a really awesome 1-2 punch. And all you need to do is go back to that Rams game in the divisional round and see how Matt LaFleur used those two in the backfield at the same time. And it created a lot of problems. And it gave A.J. Dillon a lot of looks with like a 6-man box, a 5 or 6-man box. And Aaron Jones is a weapon on one side with potential blocking if they don't put an extra player out there, with Devontae Adams lined up on the other side. That is a very potent weapon, just that formation to use against opposing defenses and really being able to kind of pick whatever the defense doesn't focus on. You want to single up Adams on one side? We'll take that all day, every day. You want to stack the box so A.J. Dillon can't get going? We'll toss it out wide to Aaron Jones with 2 blockers in front of him in a 3-on-3 situation. We're going to pick up 5-6 yards more often than not. So you want to make sure you, swing over to Aaron Jones and focus on him. Well, then we're going to run straight up the gut with A.J. Dillon and try to get, 5 or 6 man box and have a real advantageous look for him. So I love that look from Green Bay against LA, and I think there's a lot of potential and opportunity for that moving forward. And then again, it's just more of your, kind of more traditional Thunder and Lightning type backfield with, AJ Dillon being able to be the ground and pound type of guy, and Aaron Jones being able to be, everything else, right? He can pass protect, he can catch out of the backfield, he can be your bell cow when you need to, but you're not going to be able to, or you're not going to have to run either of those guys into the ground. So I love the complementary pieces there with AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. And again, the ability that you can use both of them on the field at the same time makes it that much more valuable, where, otherwise if it was just always one of those guys in the field and you couldn't ever get two on the field, you can certainly make a much bigger argument in that situation of like, well, why are you spending a second round pick on AJ Dillon and a bunch of money on Aaron Jones when only one of them can be on the field at the time? But the fact that they're both going to get carries, and the fact that you can use both of them on the field at the same time as dual weapons makes it that much more valuable to use a second round pick on AJ Dillon and a bigger contract on Aaron Jones. I also think that, this makes the players around both of these guys, especially Aaron Jones, better. Specifically, Davante Adams. We saw multiple times just this past season that Aaron Jones forced teams to play with more guys in the box, and that got Davante Adams more one-on-one looks on the outside. And even against Tampa Bay, what they basically decided to do was make sure that Jones didn't get going, and then basically put extra focus on Davante Adams on the outside. But that gave a lot of one-on-one looks on the outside with MVS. And if he's able to more consistently, beat press coverage, or if you continue to take, or if they upgrade that position in any way, shape, or form, that's going to give teams, again, major nightmares. And the Packers and Rodgers had multiple opportunities to hit MVS deep in that NFC Championship game against Tampa Bay, because that was what the Bucs were willing to give up. They were going to say, you know what, if you want to throw deep to MVS all game and you think you can beat us that way, we'll tip our cap. Well, if Rodgers had more time, and I think if he was just a hair more on target on a couple of those throws, they get a few more explosive plays. And I just think that that's not a way that teams are going to be able to continue to defend Green Bay. So it definitely makes everyone else on offense better because teams start stacking the box against Aaron Jones. I think the other reason this makes sense is you need playmakers. And without Aaron Jones, you really lack the players on offense where you can just get the ball in their hands and they can make plays on their own. Davante Adams certainly can. MVS is more, pre-catch, right? He's doing most of his work, and then if he's beaten his guy already, he can continue running, but he's not the guy that's going to make you miss in the open field. Aaron Jones is one of the few players on this offense where you can get the ball in his hands at or behind the line of scrimmage, and he can make you pay, and he can go the distance because he can, make you miss in the open field. He's got good acceleration. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He takes great angles, and we've seen him on multiple occasions take it to the house in those situations and scenarios. So Green Bay just doesn't have a ton of guys like that. And being able to bring him back and have another playmaker on your offense, of course, makes sense. And I think that brings me to my last point of why this makes sense, is that I totally get and mostly am on board with the don't pay running backs philosophy, right? But I also very much agree that you pay playmakers. And that's why I didn't hate the deals for Christian McCaffrey or Alvin Kamara as much, or even really at all, in the same vein of a Todd Gurley or Ezekiel Elliott, Le'Veon Bell, although Le'Veon Bell was a better receiver as well. But if you have the ability to make plays as a wide receiver, if you can pass protect, if you can run the ball, if you all of that stuff and be a really complete player, I don't think that Jones is quite to the McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara type level as a receiver. But I just think everything that he brings to the table is more than just a traditional running back. And I think because of that, and because of his playmaking ability, it makes it more palatable that you do give a contract. And again, a lot of this is going to be dependent upon how the structure of the deal ends up being. And I don't think this is going to be a true 4-year, $48 million deal. I think this is probably going to look more like a 2-year deal worth not a ton of money in those first couple seasons. And I think Green Bay is going to have the ability to get out of it and not have to pay him when he's 30 and not have to pay him when he's worn down. And I think that's the other thing here. The big question is going to be, well, and why maybe this doesn't make sense is you can say, well, Andy, All of these big money running back contracts just haven't worked out. It doesn't make sense to give these type of players these type of deals. And there is truth to that, unequivocally. But you also have to look at Aaron Jones and his type of workload. You look at Todd Gurley and Ezekiel Elliott, their first 4 years, they're over 1,000 total touches in their first 4 seasons. Christian McCaffrey was over 900 touches in his first 3 seasons before being injured for almost all of his 4th season. In 4 seasons, Aaron Jones is well under that. He's in like the 700s for total touches. So he's not been somebody that's been ground into the ground, so to speak, based on his touches. Maybe we can thank Mike McCarthy for that earlier in his career, but also Matt LaFleur was very, reserved with the amount of touches that he got in the regular season as well. And with having A.J. Dillon on the roster, that's going to extend the longevity of a player like Aaron Jones because you're not running him into the ground. And then you can also take a look as to why this doesn't make sense is look at all the recent Super Bowl winners, like the last decade plus. It's all guys who haven't been paid, and it's all, mostly nondescript running backs. It's not like, anyone's, any of the Adrian Petersons, the Le'Veon Bells, the Christian McCaffreys, like those players, those big name running backs over the course of the last decade plus haven't won Super Bowls. Paying running backs has not shown that it can help you get to a Super Bowl. Now, I think Green Bay's offense is a little bit different, and using, 2 running back sets and using so much of those running backs to set up the rest of your passing game, not only does it help Devontae Adams, not only does it make your offense more explosive, but that play action passing game and be able to hand it off that many times per game to Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, that extends the career of Aaron Rodgers if you want to go that route, which we don't know if they do yet, but it does give them that option. And again, I think there's a lot of things that you really have to like about this deal. So overall, while I'm, again, team not pay running back more often than not, I definitely think that there's a lot of things that we can look at and like about this deal and be excited about Aaron Jones coming back to Green Bay. Again, with the asterisk that I do want to see how the deal and how the structure of this deal works together to see just how much are they actually going to pay Aaron Jones. Is he more of a top paid running back, or was this really the team friendly deal that it looks like on the surface? So I think we're going to be able to answer those questions in the next couple days here. That also opens up a couple additional questions. What money is left for Green Bay to use? Can they go out and sign more free agents? This definitely feels, along with bringing back Preston Smith, as their kind of home run type of swings. I still think they'd be able to re-sign maybe a mid-tier free agent, but I definitely think it potentially closes the door on a big name free agent. Although I told you Preston Smith wouldn't be back, I told you Aaron Jones wouldn't be back, so who the hell knows at this point? Maybe they will go out and spend big on a free agent, but I think a lot of what they can do is going to be super dependent upon what they do with Adams, Za'Darius, and of course Aaron Rodgers. And it has been mentioned already by Tom Silverstein that it sounds like a Za'Darius Smith restructure or extension, I should say, is underway and will likely get wrapped up in the next couple days here. So definitely something to keep an eye on there, and just keeping while we're looking at how much money Green Bay may have to spend as free agency opens up. I think the next question then is, what does this do for Jamal Williams and Corey Linsley? Again, I've been wrong on a couple of these things here. I just can't see a scenario where Jamal Williams and Corey Linsley are back after paying Aaron Jones. And who knows? Maybe they've got another way to open something up, and maybe they do end up paying Corey Linsley. But I really can't see Jamal Williams back, with Jones and with A.J. Dillon taking up those top 2 spots. I just don't think that there's a spot available for him, and I think that's ultimately the right move. And with Corey Linsley, it sounds like he's going to get a serious payday. I just don't think Green Bay's going to be able to match that. But as I mentioned, I'm on 2 strikes already. One more, and I'll call it at that point and just say, screw it. Let's just see what happens at this point. But I don't think either of those players are going to be back based on what they've done so far this offseason. I've also seen a lot of suggestions that because Aaron Jones was re-signed, that just immediately makes A.J. Dillon a bad pick. It's way too early to tell. Like, if you got the next Derrick Henry in the 2nd round, that's a good pick. Like, I don't care that they paid Aaron Jones. That's still a good pick. And if they would have drafted a running back in the 3rd round, you wouldn't have cared. And it's an end of round 2 pick, which is basically a 3rd round pick. Like, so you can make a very strong argument that Green Bay did not, and I think it's the right argument, that Green Bay did not use their resources the best with Love and then Dillon and DeGuara in the first 3 rounds a season ago. I don't think that's saying anything shocking. But we're a long way away from knowing if any of those picks were the right picks, or whether they could work out, or whether they were busts or the wrong choices. A.J. Dillon can still be a hell of a running back and have a huge future with Green Bay. Jordan Love could end up being a franchise quarterback. Josiah DeGuara could be a movable piece along the offense that creates mismatches, the likes of like a Kyle Juszczyk, or maybe even better if he really pans out. We're just way too early in the process to say if these were good picks or not. We can maybe not like the process, and I can agree with that a little bit, but let's just see it play out a little bit more before we make any final judgments. And then last but not least, what's the other thing we know from this? I think it's safe to say, that there's going to be no running back in the top 100 of the draft this year for Green Bay. I think you can say goodbye to Travis Etienne from Clemson and the top running backs from this year's draft. I don't think that they have the ability to go running back in the top 100 in back-to-back seasons and also pay Aaron Jones. So again, I've seen crazier things happen this offseason, but I think we can also pencil in that there will be no running backs in the top 100 in this year's draft for Green Bay. That's going to do it for me. Aaron Jones remains a Green Bay Packer. Personally, I'm excited about it. I hope you are as well. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to check out Perry, Alex, and I on today's audio version of the podcast. We'll go over a lot of this stuff in much greater detail. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.